day on rafting. Tropical storm Mario, international name Wong, dumps heavy rain and triggers severe flooding in Luzon. Filipino peacekeepers deployed in the Golan Heights are home. And Scotland says no to independence in historic referendum. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa, and we are coming to you live from Tacloban City. We just finished day 3 of PH plus Social Good, the Journalism Forum. Tomorrow, we kick off the 4th and final day of the global conversation from the Philippines. Follow #2030Now as it whips around the world. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. At the top of the news in the Philippines, heavy rain triggers floods across central Luzon as Tropical Storm Mario, international name Wong, strands commuters and forces thousands to leave their flooded homes. State Weather Bureau Pagasa says the storm weakens as it moves west-northwest. It's estimated at 66 kilometers north-northeast of Lawag City. Storm signal number 2 is up over Cagayan, including Calayan and Babuyan Group of Islands, Batanes Group of Islands, Apayao, and Ilocos Norte. Signal number 1 is up over Isabela, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Abra, and Ilocos Sur. The storm cut power in some areas and forced airlines and ferries to cancel trips, leaving thousands of passengers stranded. In Quezon City, the La Mesa Dam spills, pouring excess water into the Tulyahan River. Late Friday, the water level reaches 80.43 meters above the spilling level of 80.15 meters. Officials earlier asked residents living along the river to evacuate. In Marikina, local authorities declare a state of calamity as the water level of the Marikina River reaches a critical level, forcing residents near the river to leave their homes. In Rizal, nearly 2,000 families are rescued from 15 barangays in San Mateo, while about 1,200 families are evacuated in Cainta. In Batangas, around 440 passengers are stranded in Batangas port because of canceled trips. In Benguet, the water levels in 2 dams, Binga and Ambuklao, near the critical levels. Cebu City has been under a state of calamity since Thursday after heavy rain caused flooding and landslides in several parts of Cebu province. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, says nearly 500,000 Filipinos are affected by the storm. At least 2 people in Metro Manila are reported dead. Heavy to intense rainfall in the National Capital Region and southern Luzon are expected until Friday night. Malacanang urges residents in low-lying areas not to risk their lives and to evacuate immediately. Check out Rappler's Project Agos microsite, a one-stop shop to help the public prepare better for disasters. Project Agos aims to raise awareness about climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction and management. You can see what to do before, during, and after natural disasters like floods and earthquakes. Use Project Agos to report flooding in your area or to help. You can report on Twitter using #RescuePH. At Gabriela, Philippines, filed this report of a woman in labor stuck on the roof of her house in Barangay Tatalon, Quezon City. With the help of the Philippine Red Cross, she's safely brought to the Diosdado Macapagal Elementary School and later gave birth to a healthy baby girl. In Rappler's PH plus Social Good Journalism Forum in Tacloban, Len Manriquez of the Peace and Conflict Journalism Network speaks about the role of community journalists in disaster response. With little to no resources when Super Typhoon Yolanda, or Haiyan, ravaged the Visayas in November 2013, community journalists put up a bulletin board to keep their public informed. Manriquez says, unlike foreign or national journalists, community journalists play a key role affecting those coping with the disaster's aftermath.
Need to have constant communicators, journalists on the ground who is able to communicate directly to the communities. And it is only possible if we have local journalists empowered. Unfortunately,
citing the low salary journalists get, Manriquez urges the public to consider setting up a community fund to pay for quality information.
that here in Tacloban, one story is only 75 pesos without communications allowance, without transportation allowance, without internet, without laptop, without anything. And how can you get a good story with 75 pesos and your photo is for free? So how can we make democracy happen if we don't capacitate the communicators, the local journalists, if the communities...
Over 300 Filipino troops deployed to the Golan Heights are home Friday, a month ahead of schedule. Military spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Ramon Zagala says this is, in his words, a practical decision on the part of the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force, or UNDOF. Escalating violence in the Golan Heights forced UNDOF to move all its peacekeepers from the Syrian side to the Israeli side. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says the situation in the Golan Heights is, quote, evolving rapidly and remains volatile. The order to send the Filipinos home comes after a controversy involving the Filipino troops and UNDOF commander Lieutenant General Iqbal Singa. Last month, Filipino troops defied Singa's orders for them to surrender their firearms after Syrian rebels stormed their encampments. Ban's report to the UN Security Council was silent on the order to surrender firearms. On the third leg of his European tour, President Benigno Aquino seeks France's support for the Philippines' maritime dispute against China. Speaking to the French Institute for International Relations Thursday and Friday in Manila, Aquino says the maritime dispute affects countries around the world.
There is an emerging pattern of aggression bent on establishing new realities at sea and in the air. Freedom of navigation and unimpeded lawful commerce are threatened. This is why
Aquino also says the Philippines is advocating peaceful resolution through arbitration and the formulation of a binding code of conduct. The results are in. Scotland says no to independence. After a historic referendum that saw both pro-independence and pro-union camps in a close fight, 55.30% of Scottish voters choose to remain part of the United Kingdom, against the 44.70% who wanted Scotland to break its 300-year-old union with England. Conceding defeat, Scottish nationalist leader Alex Salmond thanks the 1.6 million people who voted for independence and urges them to accept the results. There were some big wins for the Yes campaign, including the city of Glasgow, but the margin was not enough to beat the no votes across Scotland. The Better Together campaigners cheer as results come in, while Yes Scotland supporters watch dejected and in tears. Let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 5, American aircraft bombed a training camp for ISIS, or the Islamic State jihadists in northern Iraq, the first time the United States targeted a training camp since the air campaign began on August 8. Some 40 jihadist fighters were at the training camp southeast of Mosul when the aircraft bombed buildings, fighters, and vehicles. On Thursday, ISIS released a video of British freelance journalist John Cantley, in which he says he's being held captive, although there was no immediate threat to his life apparent in the video. And at number 7, the United Nations, or UN, will set up a new mission to fight the Ebola outbreak. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will appoint a special representative to lead the mission, which will be the focal point for international response to the epidemic. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Every story on Rappler has a mood meter, which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel and your vote comes down to the mood navigator in the middle of the front page. That crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have affected our readers and viewers the most emotionally. If you take a look, these 10 stories have gotten the most number of votes on their mood meter. If you take, again, what's interesting here is it's a pretty interesting day, given that we did have Mario come in northern Luzon. You have hashtag MarioPH, the live blog, 76% sad, 4% angry. That red brought out in 7 of the 10 stories. The story that's gotten the most number of votes is this one in the last 24 hours. The full text of Binay on the empty claims of Makati corruption. A whopping 88% angry over this story, bringing out the mood of the day. Today, most people are angry. Well, that is Rappler's newscast for today, Friday, September 19, 2014. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa, and we are coming to you live from Tacloban City as we finish the last 2 days of the Social Good Summit in the Philippines. Follow the global conversation. Follow hashtag 2030 Now. Remember, as we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.